Okay, so the wedging the wedging video is 1 of 2 and 2 of 2. I guess my camera was too full. It wouldn't keep it didn't have enough space to store it on. So I'm putting you back here. I'm going to finish off. Remember we were drilling out this one? This is the one with the epoxy in the end of it. Canadian Tire is renowned for doing that in Canada. So I drilled out the epoxy. I made a bunch of holes. Now I'm basically chipping out the epoxy on the top here. So there is no wedge. They've just basically and they set the handle in there about 1/4 of an inch, okay, and then they just fill the top of it with epoxy. So I'm hoping it'll drive off of there now. I've got a fairly big hole in it. So this is the continuation. This is section 2 of 2 on wedging. Okay, and it took off pretty good. So the biggest thing is just removing that. What holds your axe tight is putting more wood in there and prying it out. So when you drill it all out, you remove that wood, it releases the stress, and of course the handle comes right out. So there's our epoxy handle. And again, the other thing you can do, cut it off at the end here. Sometimes when I get tough ones, what I'll do is I'll pound them through a bit. This is another epoxy one. I'll pound them through a bit, then cut it off in the bandsaw, and then drive it out the other way. So this one here, I was messing around with this earlier, and I've got a drill bit in there. The drill bit busted off, so it's still sitting right here. You can see the drill bit there at the top. So I'm just going to reach in with my needle nose pliers, get a hold of it and pull it out. So now the metal's out there, and I'm going to cut that off and then drive it out the other way, okay, because the bottom is still fairly solid. So I'm going to use my bandsaw, cut this off. Hang on 2 seconds. Okay, and I can see now why I have a problem. If you look at this really closely, you can see the epoxy. The epoxy's on the outside of this as well. So basically, they while it was loose, they used the epoxy and basically filled up all the looseness in the top of this axe. So okay, so we're going to have a same issue here. In that we need a lot of where's my pin? There it is. We need a lot of metal on the wood here because we're running out of wood a little bit. So I'm going to put it right along the edge and tap that out. There, and it started moving. So usually once you start it one way, take some wood out and then start it the other, it'll come right out. So you can see there's epoxy the whole way down the outside of that. So here's that one all cleaned out. And of course with that epoxy in there, it's nice and clean the whole way along it. So there, we just removed 5 axe heads from old handles. Even saved some handles I didn't really want to save. So that's removing wedges. So again, what makes it complicated is when you put metal and other things in there to fill up the gap when your axe head gets loose. So the advice from the East Coast Lumberjack, don't do that. Instead, when the handle gets loose, that means your wood shrunk. Pop the other wedge out because it will come out nice and easy when that head's loose. Get a new wedge, pound it in, and that should be good for the life of your axe handle. One other thing I will say about, and we'll talk about that a little bit. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come back and talk to you a little bit about kerf and how far down the kerf should go. Okay, this one here is cut down to here. Okay, your kerf should never go right to the bottom. All right. Depending on where your axe head's going to sit finally, where it finally rests, your kerf should come down half to 3/4 of the way, not more than 3/4. Okay, half is probably perfect. And what you want the wood itself to hold nice and snug at the bottom, and then you want the wedge to fill up the top. That's ideally how you want to wedge an axe. The other thing I would say is you'll see that there's no big shoulders on my axe handles. Now, if a guy wants that, I will make it with a large shoulder for him. Typically, though, I leave enough wood in the eye of the axe, the top part, that as you whittle this down to make it shape to fit your axe head, it will automatically make your little shoulder here on your handle, if you want it there. Again, over the years and years that I've done handles, I would recommend you don't do that. When you actually have a change in profile, the more abrupt the change in profile, the weaker the point is for the wood. So we used to actually score these back in the day when I was a college student, and then actually take all this wood off, put the axe head on, and it would bump up against the shoulder here. And then what happened is our axe handles would split right here, because where that shoulder is creates a natural weak point in your wood. Okay, so if you watch the pros, and I did watch Eddie Fawcett a few times and how he hung axe handles down in Masterton, New Zealand, and he had a beautiful smooth transition. You look at any competition racing axe, and again, these are 5-pound razor blades. If you thought you needed a lip or any kind of a shoulder here, you should probably have it on one of those, but you never see it, because what it does is it causes a weak point in your wood. So they're always nice and smooth from out of the eye right onto the handle. And that's how I recommend you always hang your axes, because that way you don't create a weak point where the axe head meets the rest of the handle. Okay, another tip from the old East Coast Lumberjack. So what I'll do here to wrap up, I want to show you, I've made a few orders here today. Mike Kingerly out in Montana, he wanted some cruisers, so I've got these here are Hetherington handles. This is my Hetherington pattern. They're a boy's axe pattern. They've got a nice little fawn's foot on them, okay? And it's nice and abrupt, so it holds your hand on there. So he wanted 3 of those 29-inch, and then he wanted a nice long. Here's how's that for a nice long 36-inch hickory double bitter, okay? Beautiful handle. So those ones are going to Montana. Then I've got another couple that are going to, I don't remember where he was at. Oklahoma. I think this is the first axe handle order that's going to Oklahoma, and I'll tell you what I'm shipping there. I'm shipping my my famous American felling axe pattern, okay, and it's got this really neat little foot on the end of it, okay. It's got a really nice swell. So this is an ash handle, again, nice and straight right down the barrel. So that one's a 36-inch, and he also wanted a 36-inch hex handle. So here's the hex handle. I'll show it to you from both ends. Okay, so that's when they come out nice, they're actually quite fun to make, and it's like a vintage handle. It's nice and thin. It really fits your hand. If you have never had a hex handles fit your hands really nicely. So those two are going to Oklahoma, and I'll be packaging them and sending them out. And then my other buddy, Tim Benson, and he's down in Florida. So he likes big palm swells. So I put some nice big palm swells. This is a big 34-inch double bitter, and it's all heartwood, hickory heartwood. When he stains this, it's going to be just beautiful. Actually, all he has to do is put BLO on it. It'll look beautiful. He also got an American felling axe pattern, and it's a hickory handle as well. It's about 32-inch. And then you got a few other. You got a 28-inch ash with another big